The national opioid crisis has raised awareness about an important public health problem. But we must not forget why opioids came to be in the first place: to heal pain. According to the National Institutes of Health, over 50 million American adults suffer from chronic, daily, or severe pain. We can argue as to whether opioid medications are the most appropriate way to treat pain, but I'd like us to focus on the inner experience of people with pain. What are they going through? As a clinical psychologist and a researcher, I've spent the last 20 years working with and interviewing people with chronic pain. I also have family members with chronic pain, and I've learned from them that it's not just the physical suffering, but also the emotional suffering that takes a toll. And I've learned from them that how loved ones respond to them makes a big difference in their quality of life. Specifically, our ability to pay attention and to be with someone who is suffering has healing power. To understand this a little bit better, I'd like you to imagine what it's like to have chronic pain. Pain that follows you wherever you go. It's with you when you're awake, and it's with you when you're asleep. You go to a loved one and you tell them what it's like to suffer from chronic pain, how you're worried that you're going to become more disabled over time, or how you're sad or even angry that you cannot play with your children or your grandchildren the way you used to, or that you can't engage in valued activities like riding a bike or gardening. How would you want your loved one to respond to you when you express your worry, your sadness, and your anger about your illness? In all likelihood, you'd want simple, authentic responses from your loved one. Responses like, "I'm so sorry that you're feeling this way," or "It's not fair, I wish I could take that pain away from you." Or even questions like, "I had no idea you were feeling this way. Come, sit with me. What are you going through?" These kinds of responses are called emotional validation, and they signal to the person with pain and suffering that they are valued, that they have dignity, and that they are loved. In my research, I have found that these kinds of emotionally validating responses are associated with better mood, less pain, and better quality relationships. Now, I've also seen other kinds of responses, invalidating responses. Responses like, "Stop being a baby," or "I have pain and I can deal with it, why can't you?" Or "Just go to the doctor and have them fix it, I'm tired of hearing about this." Or worse, "It's all in your head." Imagine what it feels like to receive those kinds of responses when you share your suffering with a loved one. These kinds of invalidating responses signal to the person that they are not worthy, that they're unimportant, and they're associated with greater anxiety and depression. And there are many reasons why people respond in these invalidating ways. Sometimes we're taught to ignore or dismiss pain and just turn away. Other times there's anger or resentment that might build up because of how the pain has affected the people's lives. And sometimes we respond with invalidation because we feel helpless in the face of another person's pain. And so we turn away or lash out because it feels uncomfortable to be helpless. The good news is that we can change this behavior, and we can become attentive to another person's suffering. And this is the basis of many psychological treatments for pain and for other problems. And in a treatment that I develop for couples who are coping with pain, I incorporate exercises where couples can regain this sense of attention and sit with uncomfortable feelings to be able to be there for their partners. And so based on that research and also other research, I would like to share with you 3 ways you can be game changers in the lives of your loved ones who are suffering. So first is simple gratitude. Think of a time when you received that kind of attention from somebody else when you were suffering in mind, body, or spirit. Someone who listened to you and accepted you for who you were. Recall that experience and recall that person and be grateful for both. And then pay it forward to the next person. Second, recall a time when you were able to give that kind of attention to somebody else. A time when you were able to spend some time listening to someone else as they were expressing their feelings. Under what condition were you able to do that? For many of us, we are able to pay attention to another person because we have cultivated some other daily practice that allows us to be grounded. For some of us, it might be daily meditation, prayer, exercise. These kinds of practices can help us cultivate and be ready and open to being attentive to another person. And third, there are some things that we can do in the moment when we're listening to someone who is suffering. The first is to listen. Don't change the subject, just listen. The second is to be aware of our own feelings as we are listening to someone else express their suffering. We might feel compassion, sadness, anger, helplessness. These are all normal feelings that come up when we hear somebody facing a difficult time and when we especially cannot solve that problem for them. There's no need to run away or push those feelings down, but to just accept them for what they are and use that in your listening. The third thing that we can do is to ask the person what they need. Oftentimes we jump into problem solving, which can appear invalidating because we're trying to get rid of the problem and we don't want to hear this person suffering anymore. But instead, if we ask, what do you need? Do you need some problem solving or do you need a listening ear? That allows the person who is suffering to tell you and to take some agency over it. And it allows you to respond in the way that they're accepting. Now, these kinds of practices, it takes time. And it takes practice, and sometimes we forget and we need to relearn them. Now, the very old and the very young are very good at paying attention. And I'd like to share a short video to show you an example of this. Such a tension between these two people. Their eyes are locked and they're not paying attention to anything else that's going on around them. Now, we have that quality when we're very young. And then we get older and we get distracted. There are many things competing for our attention. But with regular practice, we can regain the sense of attention. And it will not cure chronic pain. It will not cure suffering. But it will lessen suffering and it will improve quality of life. And this is a gift that we can give to other people that we encounter. And in giving this gift, we receive a treasure. Simone Weil, a French writer, once shared the story of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail was a very special treasure, highly sought after. People thought of all ways that they could try to get this treasure. And the guardian of the Grail was a king who was wounded with chronic pain and paralyzed. And Weil says that the key to attaining the treasure of the Grail was to give our attention to the king and ask the king, "What are you going through?" She says, only the person capable of attention can do this. Are we willing to pay attention? Thank you.